Okay, here's our video on composing and decomposing figures. And we'll do polygons, which are flat figures, 2D figures, and we'll also do 3D figures, which are polyhedrons. So, to compose just means to put two or more figures together. So we're putting together when we compose. So for example, let's say we had, well, this over here. Let me draw this better. Let's say that we made a square. Let's say that's a square. And let's say right next to it we have a rectangle. Okay? We have a square and we have a rectangle. Now, to compose the two, we can put the two together and they can look like that. That's just composing when we put the two figures together. So what do you think decompose would mean? Decompose means to break apart. Decompose means to break apart. So here we have the rectangle and the square, right? Cut it up like that. We have the rectangle and the square. So compose, put together, decompose, take apart. Okay, so when we do put two shapes together, like this rectangle, we took this rectangle here, and we put it together with a square, we create an irregular figure. Alright, so we put a rectangle or a square together, we get an irregular figure. Or if we put any two shapes together that are not a standard shape, we call it irregular. Now, we need to remember volume. Remember, if we want to get the volume of an object, we want to know the length times the width times the height. Or we can just put these variables like this together. Length times width times height. So if we make a cube, let's say, and we know a cube is just polyhedron, that's a square, so something like this, where all the shapes are the same size. Let's say they were all 3 inches, let's say. So we have the length of 3, the width of 3, and the height of 3. So what would be the volume then? Remember, here's the formula, length times width times height. So it'll be 3 times 3 times 3. So the volume would be 27, and we'll just say they're units for now. Units cubed. We always cube volume. Here's the cube. So it's length times width times height. That's the volume. And the volume, we remember, it's what we can fill in inside this box. So we can fill 27 units cubed of stuff in this box. Now let's go back to composing. So let's say we had this rectangular prism here. Right? Let's say there was 4 feet by, let's say this was 1 foot. Right? So again, this would be 1 foot. So it's 4 foot by 1 foot. We have a cube here. It's 1 foot. How can we put these two together? What would it look like if we put these two together? So if a cube, this is a cube, then it's 1 foot everywhere. It's 1 foot the length, and so forth. It's 1 foot everywhere. So see if you can compose. Remember, these two shapes need to be composed, and they need to be put together. What would it look like? See if you can do that. Okay, so let's draw it over here. I can draw the rectangular prism. So we'll just draw the rectangular prism first. You don't have to be, doesn't have to be perfect. So there's our rectangular prism. And if we join the cube, right, so this is part of the cube. Let's say we can add onto it this way. And the more you do this, the more you'll get better at it. So it'll look like an L. Or, you know, any shape that you, wherever you want to put it on the line. Right? And then you can erase so it doesn't look transparent. make it look more solid. So we composed, we took the rectangular prism and the cube, and we composed it by putting it together. So remember, we had measurements here. This was 4, we'll say just 4 units. Write that better. This was 1, so that's 1. This was 1, so if they were both 1, now we have a total of 2. And then we have 1 here. And since, now you have to think about it. This whole thing from here to here was 4, and the cube was 1. So this part that's left would be 3. This would be 3, and that would be 1, and together would be 4. Okay, we'll have a 1 here and a 1 here. Remember, it was a cube. Now, if we wanted to get the volume of this irregular figure, if you wanted, you can break it apart. You can decompose it. You'll get something like this. We know the cube, the volume of the cube is just 1. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. It's 1 unit cubed. And here we have a width of 1. We have a length of 4. We have a height of 1. So 4 times 1 times 1 is 4. So we have 4 units cubed, and this is 1 unit cubed. So the total, just add it, will be 5 units cubed. So sometimes we can take an irregular figure like this, decompose it to find the volume. But today, in this video, we're just going to look at how to decompose and compose things. We'll worry about volume in the next video. So again, I took a rectangular prism and a cube, and I composed it. Right like that. Now if I want to decompose it, you just take it off.